It took quite a long time for a sapphic-themed film to get an Oscar nomination. There had been a number of actors who had played sapphic characters and been nominated for the leading actress category prior. I will be making a companion video going over those, so stay tuned. But it was 2002, at the 74th ceremony, can you believe, before a sapphic-themed movie got a nomination, and it took quite some star power to get there in the form of Nicole Kidman, Julianne Moore, and Meryl Streep, which, to be fair, every film on this list boasts big star power, so it's not unusual. They all play sapphic characters who are linked across different time periods by the Virginia Woolf novel Mrs. Dalloway. We follow Virginia Woolf herself as she writes the novel and is struggling with her mental health, a young housewife whose deep unhappiness with her life is overwhelming her and seeks solace in the novel, and a woman preparing for a dinner party mirroring the Mrs. Dalloway character. It's a good film that, as a young sapphic, left an impression, although it's not what I would call a happy film as it deals with suicide. And it isn't a happy ending. And if you know Virginia Woolf's story, you'll know why. Still, a worthy first nomination for Best Picture. It took 8 years before another sapphic film got nominated, which came in the form of 2010's Black Swan, starring Natalie Portman and Mila Kunis. The psychological thriller looks at the deteriorating mental health of a ballerina on the verge of stardom. Interesting that the first two films about sapphics to get nominated deal with delicate mental health. It's giving me crazy lesbian trope, which you probably know has plagued sapphic content. Now, the film follows Nina, who has won the lead role in Swan Lake, a role that requires her to play both the white and black swan. Struggling to embody the black swan, she is pushed beyond her limits by an overbearing mother and a new rival, Lily, who could possibly take this role away from her. As she begins to spiral, she also begins to question reality, and on her descent, she no longer knows if sleeping with Lily after a night out on E happened or not. While the ending is left ambiguous, her mental health is looking pretty dire by the end. The representation aside, however, this is a compelling and well-made film. The other film to get an Oscar nomination in 2010 had another unfortunate trope that I'm not partial to for the film The Kids Are Alright. This follows a lesbian couple, Nick and Jules, who have 2 kids together via donor. Now teenagers, the kids are curious to meet their biological dad, and so they agree to invite him over for a meal, and the kids are impressed with his carefree bohemian lifestyle. The unfortunate trope is also a central plot point to the movie, namely that Jules, feeling somewhat neglected by her wife, ends up falling into bed with the sperm donor, and lordy, I dislike that trope so much. The affair is found out and causes both Nick and Jules to have to face the issues of their relationship, which, of course, throws their entire family into chaos, and the question is, can their marriage survive the infidelity? On the upside, it's Julianne Moore and Annette Bening in the roles, but while I'm sure the film is good, I'm not a fan because of the whole lesbian sleeping with a man. Still, it got nominated for Best Picture. It was another 8 years before The Favourite, with Rachel Weisz, Emma Stone and Olivia Colman, got a nomination, which is an absurdist dark comedy based on the historical figure of Queen Anne and her long-standing relationship with the Duchess of Marlborough and Lady-in-Waiting, Sarah Churchill. Sarah is not just a confidant and advisor to Queen Anne, exercising a considerable amount of influence over the governance of the country, but is also her lover. Queen Anne is of delicate constitution, having had an astounding 17 pregnancies with none of her children surviving to adulthood, which has had an impact not only on her physical health, but her mental health too. When Sarah's younger, ambitious cousin Abigail Hill turns up and secures herself a position as a lady-in-waiting, she starts to drive a wedge between Queen Anne and Sarah as she vies to become the Queen's new favourite, and is not above using Queen Anne's sapphic nature to secure her position. However, Sarah will not go without a fight, which could prove deadly to her. Whether the lesbian element to this film is historically accurate or not is, from what I've read, up for debate, but nonetheless this movie is a compelling story of dynamic and powerful women at the turn of the 18th century. In an unusual twist, the men are depicted as pompous, superficial and hedonistic characters who have little influence on state affairs. That remains the domain of the women, making for a fresh and interesting feminist film. 2022 saw a film written specifically for Cate Blanchett getting a nomination with Tar, the story of a celebrated conductor, Lydia Tar, working with the Berlin Orchestra. We see how she abuses her power when she develops an attraction for a young woman who auditions to join the orchestra. She makes sure that the girl gets in and then favors her by controversially giving her a solo, which contrasts with how she has blacklisted another musician who ultimately takes her life as a result. With the threat of being accused of misconduct hanging over her involvement in this, her career and personal life with her wife and young daughter could come crumbling down. This is a cerebral meditation on power and its power to corrupt, offering up a thoughtful psychological drama. Now, none of these films ultimately won Best Picture, but I do have 3 sapphic-themed films that did walk away with a golden statue. The first win actually came in 1993 for Best Foreign Film, called Belle Époque, a Spanish film that follows a young man called Fernando who had deserted the army in 1931 just as the Second Spanish Republic is about to be announced, and finds himself in an idyllic town. There he is taken in by a local who has 4 beautiful daughters. He falls for each of them one by one, however each time a complication arises. One of these complications is that Violetta is a lesbian. Now, the representation certainly has its flaws as it involves a lesbian sleeping with a man, again, and the excuse given for it this time is that Fernando was dressed up in a maid's costume and that Violetta couldn't resist. I don't know if Violetta gets any further story than that, so in terms of sapphic satisfaction, I don't know that this scratches the itch, but it is the first time a film with a sapphic storyline has won an Oscar, or so I am led to believe. 3 years later, another lady-loving lady-themed film won the Oscar for Best Foreign Film, this time with the Dutch film Antonia's Line, which follows Antonia as she returns to the village of her childhood to bid goodbye to her mother on her deathbed with her grown daughter Daniela in post-World War II Netherlands. She decides to stay and helps her daughter to have a one-night stand to get pregnant since the daughter has no desire for a husband, and then the daughter ends up falling for her daughter's tutor Lara and ends up in a long-term sapphic relationship. Perhaps because this is a self-described feminist film about the generations of women thriving without the help of a man, the queer elements of the story fare better than the previous win of Belle Époque. It's not a film I've seen yet, but it's on my list for sure now. So here we are at the one film that has sapphic themes that has won in all of the 98 years of films getting Oscars, and it is none other than Everything Everywhere All at Once. And while there have certainly been worthy films that could have gained this historic recognition, I'm not mad at all that this is the one that finally did it, because it is a fantastic film. It follows Evelyn, a disgruntled, middle-aged immigrant to the US working in a laundromat who, with the threat of tax fraud hanging over her head, the arrival of her critical father to visit from China, and a disintegrating relationship with her daughter Joy, must fight an existential threat that threatens the fabric of the multiverse. It's a wild, adrenaline-filled ride that spans multiple universes with high-octane fight sequences that only Michelle Yeoh could pull off, but it also ultimately is a simple story about a mother and a daughter straining to understand each other. The primary reason for their strained relationship hinges around Joy being gay and Evelyn's difficulty in truly accepting that. I did a review of this film and just how gay it really is over on Patreon, so if you're interested in exclusive videos as well as a podcast going over the OG lesbian show Xena Warrior Princess episode by episode, and access to a growing database of sapphic film and TV with handy links to my reviews on them, do consider joining. It's insane to think that in almost 100 years of film, there's only 6 films with sapphics in them that have been nominated for the Best Picture, and only 1 win, and 2 wins for the Best Foreign Film category. When it comes to actors who played sapphic characters, the numbers are a little brighter, so do subscribe if you want to be notified for when I post a video about that. In the meantime, if you've ever wondered when the first sapphic kiss was immortalized on celluloid, check out the video on your screen about the history of sapphic film and TV. If you don't already know when that happened, I'll wager you'll be surprised. Until next time, lady lovers.